If you're under 60, you haven't seen it all.
Well, hi once again, everybody. Welcome back to the CommStock Channel. I'm Marlin Bohling with you. I am pleased today to be joined by the founder of CommStock Investments, the one and only David Kruse. He joins us today, and this is especially exciting for me. David, I was looking forward to doing this interview with you because right now, we are kind of hovering around the 40th anniversary of when you started doing your radio shows. And of course, they're always market related or ag related or whatever is on your mind. And man, that was just a long standing radio format for many, many decades. A lot of people really got familiar with you. And congratulations, first of all, on that milestone. Man, that's a long running program. Want to get from you some of your, maybe some of your highlights that you recall from when you started that show and what you came through during the years.
Well, we'll do a little musing here today. One thing I learned that if I take this picture of the CommStock Report, I hold it up, it's backwards when you get to see it. But that is the CommStock Report is 40 years old. So I didn't know how that worked before with a camera, but kind of funny they're opposite. But yeah, I started farming clear back in 1973. I was only a couple years in college and got an offer to rent a farm, and those didn't come around very often. So I jumped at it and came home and started the farm, and so I got to experience the inflation of the 1970s. Now this is in northwest Iowa, Clay County. Some of them, they say it's near Royal, Iowa. They say the best soil surrounds Royal, and RCS R2s are all above 90, 95, or a lot of cases. So we've got really good land. And so most of the time we lose more crop here to too wet than we do too dry. But last year it was some of both on that part of it. But anyway, came home, started farming, and the inflation, probably anybody under 60 years old that's still farming today missed out on that experience. It was entirely different with inflation. Anything that you bought or owned or held went up in value. And a lot of guys never experienced anything quite like that. But also then that encouraged leverage, because why not then borrow money and if it's going to go up in value. And of course we got to the point we got to 1980, and we were extremely overextended. Banks were overextended, farmers were overextended. And then we had the collapse and ag depression of the 1980s that followed that. One of the, epiphanies of my life was in 1980. I had a friend who went to Chicago, and we attended a seminar put on by Jake Bernstein. He was a well-known psychoanalyst at that time. And what he basically outlined for our immediate future was eye-opening and stark. Essentially basically predicted the ag depression of the 80s, and that farmers and banks were going to go broke. Someone would ask him whether this was a time to bring home a son into an operation that required leverage, and he said absolutely not. He said that farmland prices he predicted would drop 80%, and other things, interest rates. It really had one of the most clairvoyant forecasts that I've experienced in my lifetime since then. Our high of our land price on that cycle here near Royal, 5 miles away, was about $4,000 an acre. Then I can't remember how many years it was after that, but I know my father-in-law bought a farm for $800 an acre. And if you do the math, that was 80% on the nose, and it was about high to low. And so that came true. Of course, during the ag depression, they were going to kill inflation. Paul Volcker at the Fed, and so interest rates, I think, actually peaked at 21%. That brought a torrent of foreign capital into the United States to take advantage of that type of federal interest rate, and the U.S. dollar soared. And it's about worse than 145% tariffs now, what the dollar did then. I think the dollar index was like 164, at the peak. And today it's under 100, it's under par. And so you can imagine what that did to agriculture. And well, it was hard on a young farmer, somebody just getting started. Had to have some leverage probably to begin, and so we had to get through that. And one of the things was find some new income. And I was probably one of the first farmers that had a quote system in their office, and I had recognized that there was marketing opportunities throughout a year. And although the price of corn might be $2, there was a point in time when you probably could have hedged that almost every year for about $3. And if you were consistently patient and watched, and it came in a seasonal time frame. And usually when a new contract started trading was the high, and then it would continue down right into expiration. So it really wasn't that complicated. But one of the things I learned is that to be able to survive, the marketing could be a great advantage to you. And so then I decided I needed other income. My wife was working as a teacher, and so we had a little off-farm income. And so I got my brokerage license and started into that business. A lot of family friends continued to farm. I was able to do that. I had a grandfather and a father who were financially stable, and our bank in Spencer, Iowa, went broke, and we ended up then looking for a new home and somebody that would take me as the weak link, and we ended up at the Home State Bank in Royal, Iowa. We're actually now today, it is metamorphosed over time. That's where CommStock's head office ended up being too. But well, so we got into that business, and so I had extra income. At the time I got so busy, I had been feeding cattle and hogs, and I had to let those two enterprises go. My wife she ended up being an administrator at a community college. And then as the business grew within a few years, and she came into the business and basically administrated us from that standpoint in the company, was a major contributor that way. But so we got to, let's jump to 1980. Well, I'm going to go back to 1980, one more thing, because what I mentioned about Jake Bernstein, that was my inspiration. I saw this in what someone could help, how it was so helpful to basically get a good handle on what the future was. And as bad as the 80s were, it was predictable. And once you knew what to look for and such as time went on, it was a huge education. And then my education continued as time went on. In about 1985, I was in a partnership with a stockbroker, and he had invited me into the company, and we needed a new name. Well, he was a stockbroker, I was a commodity broker, so it became CommStock. And he had a pretty wealthy family, and he would sell a lot of bonds. And these were bonds like to buy new fire trucks for cities, municipal people, put in water systems, things like this. Well, and then of course I was focused entirely on the commodity side. Well, about 1985 or so, one day our local radio station people walked in, and they informed me that their normal or their regular, what they had for a source of market information, was retiring, and would I have any interest in doing something for them on the station? And I said, oh, absolutely. Well, then I found out later that I had a radio voice. I probably don't have a TV face, but I got a radio voice, is what I was told, at least. Anyway, and then that kind of developed. I mean, the technology wasn't anything like it was back now. It was a lot harder to produce and get a report out to the stations. Each one had to get it individually and such, but that began to grow. Well, then Farm Data also was an up-and-coming company. People were finally getting quote screens in their offices on the farms and things, and they needed market analysts, and so I was invited to join DTN as an analyst, and the CommStock Report then went that direction. Over time, the CommStock Report also became a column for newspapers. It's carried by a number of those, so it ended up on a number of mediums, and then you come on, and I still consider, I guess, what you do to be part of the CommStock Report with the CommStock Channel now on YouTube. So it's morphed through all these different types of media situations. But But anyway, they did expand on the radio side, and as far as the report then on farm data, and ended up changing two. Initially, it was just one report in the afternoon. Then it became two reports, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and went for that for quite a while. And I was doing it all. I was a full-time broker. I was still farming, going home. I'd come home at 3 o'clock or 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the tractor would be sitting at the end of the field with a field cultivator hooked on it. And my dad would be planting, and I'd have to get going or whatever to get ahead of him to prepare some more ground so he could go again, that way. And we worked until late in the night, and then I would get up relatively early in the morning. That was one of the changes. My daughter asked me the other day. She said, "Dad, how could you do all this?" And I said, "I used to be able to get by on 7 hours of sleep and actually be rested and ready to go." And well, I'm 72 now, and that sort of went away. But it takes a little longer, and I'm not quite so ready to go. But that helped an awful lot. That energy or stuff back then at that time frame. As over the course of things, we got a pretty broad acknowledgement. And I guess it really struck home to me maybe one of the first times was with Plan B. This was around 2000. And what it was is we were seeing Brazil come on as a tremendous competitor. And I was concerned about it. What could we do to compete with this? And I came up with an idea that let's use our farm program and the power we had from that to basically put pressure on Brazil. And by that I meant that we had actually a profitable loan rate. And so let's plant beans. Let's plant mostly beans, and we will overwhelm the soybean market, which will at that point in time their ag economy was still wavering, or it was still not established as what it is right now. Our price of corn would go up, which would be profitable to us because we'd have fewer beans, and we get paid by the government. And we went around and we went all around the country, and sort of promoted it. We had stickers and a little advertising and everything else. And then in 2001, wanted to go down to Brazil and actually see what were we competing with. And I and a friend or two and my son Matthew ended up in Brazil. And as I was down there, and I'd meet someone, and David Kruse, you're the guy with Plan B. They'd actually heard about it. They knew about it. Or whatever. We'd had that much exposure. Well, we were obviously impressed, I guess, overall with what we saw down there. Kind of morph it into things here. Another thing we were doing and looking for at that time in that era was value added. And we were having this great productivity of corn, and we were seeing competition from other places for the export market. And so what can we do domestically to improve our demand to consume the productivity of this upward trend line yield that we all were experiencing? And of course, that was the ethanol industry. And I would say I was one of the foremost, or I don't know, foremost, that's probably overblowing it quite a little, but I was one of the many people who invested a lot into promoting the development of the ethanol industry. And at one time, I probably had investments in 10 different biofuel projects. That has now shrunk down over time to 3, and they're all profitable today. I got dividends from all 3 of them last year, which was helpful in a down ag economy. My salesmanship on that was that theoretically, if the price of corn is really bad, well, that must mean that ethanol should be profitable, and you would get a dividend from an ethanol investment. If that would help out then on your bottom line. Conversely, if the price of corn was really high, your ethanol investment may not produce a dividend, but you would make your money from the corn market. And so it was a good hedge of your income by that type of investment. And by and large, that's held true. I mean, we created over 5 billion bushels of corn demand from that. and it really filled. How much trouble would we be in today if we didn't have the ethanol industry and what that did to our demand given our productivity? We'd be in a lot of trouble. And so, it was, I kind of look back if that was a major move for what we did. We're still there today. I mean, we're getting to the point again where our productivity is again caught up with our demand. We've got a lot of problems with our export outlook. Can't really rely on that. And so we need to again look back to this value added, and the opportunities are there. Low carbon ethanol is the ticket as far as increased demand. It satisfies the needs of the sustainable aviation fuel, and it would actually many other countries. It would open markets there too. We would even see more exports. Well, to get that low carbon score for an ethanol plant, it does require that they sequester their CO2. And so now we're into this controversies with the carbon pipelines and such. But it's going to cost us if we don't find this next level of demand to meet our productivity. We're heading, it's like a collision with a train going off a bridge or something at some point in time, and we've delayed what we should have done already, in my opinion, in advancing this to this next level of demand. And so, I go back, and so I've been doing this for 40 years. What's agriculture need to do next? And it seems so obvious to me, and yet it's very difficult so many times to make people understand, or do they have other interests or whatever along the line that and gets impeding the progress, or whatever that's there. But anyway, Brazil has now done what we expected it to do, which was expand its production immensely. It looks to me like they've now signed up with China as being their, their primary partner for their production there. So we're going to lose that market. Hard to see that there's going to be a trade deal here that gets that back for us in a while. So we're going to rejigger the global supply chain for egg products again, and who we sell to and who we do business with. Actually, so far, I feel like if anything here, many countries have been acting defensively, and have even probably increased their imports in the short term to build some inventory and some buffer. I don't know if I hope that's not like the guy jumping off a 30-story building, and when he gets to the 20th floor, is looking around and saying, so far, so good. We don't know whether this thing's going to end up until our feet are on the ground yet for how we're going to come out of this. But right now, it's so far, so good. But I think we have things to concern about, because I don't know that we're going up. There's a lot of changes or differences between now and what we saw in the 80s. We're not as over-leveraged. Banks are solid as far as financial condition. The dollar is actually weaker, which helps us on those things. And so there's specific instances where farmers in certain situations are been put under duress. It'd be nice if the government would honor their contracts to farmers and things that of the previous administration. It used to be that when you changed to administration, if you had a contract with the USDA, that didn't change whether or not that contract was good or would be performed well. Well, that seems to have changed. You can't trust that anymore, which is something I think we've lost. But overall, the company is continuing to change. My son, Matthew, is now the owner of CommStock, and we've modified who does the CommStock reports. I do 3 afternoon reports now. I'm pulling back on that. My son is also, last year was my 51st year as far as producing crops, and this is my first year now as a landlord. And my son now is the one that's doing the farming for our family farm operation. He's the 6th generation. It goes back to our family farm. It goes back to 1896. And so we've been at this, for a while that way. He's had an interesting. I'm going to interject some things on him in here, because we still work together, of course, in the company. But he went when we went to Brazil in that 2001 time frame. We came back, and and looked at the potential of investing there. And we were seeing how the ethanol plants were being organized. I can remember what LLCs is how they were being together, and how a lot of different investors would put together contributions to the equity, and a company would be formed, and then you make ethanol. Well, we thought that thing could work in Brazil too, was what we did, and so we did create Brazil Iowa Farms, and were able to attract some capital, and my son Matthew moved to Brazil. I told him it took at least two or three things to be able to do that in Brazil. He had to be unattached, he had to be healthy, and he had to be just a little crazy. And evidently, he met all the qualifications. And we gave him two suitcases, and he was off to Brazil, not speaking the language or anything else. There was. I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but we ended up selling our share of it to some partners, and after 10 years, and he came home and got his MBA, and then came in and began participating in the company. He also got a nice Brazilian bride, who was she's quite a girl. If you ask her what she does, she says, "I'm a farmer." And her family has got a long farm legacy there too. Tremendous soybean seed production company. Has a large dairy, which one of her brothers, she has two brothers, manages. She has another brother who operates it's a very large dairy, one of the largest dairies in Brazil. She is in charge of their coffee, and they've got 1,200 acres of coffee. And so she and Matthew have also created a company, and they now import that coffee into the United States direct from their farm. And it comes in on the East Coast and goes to cold storage in Indiana. And then they have now, they've got a lot of roasters that have been picked up now as customers. And so it's a direct, that a lot of U.S. roasters come to their farm. I think they're Starbucks certified, and that sort of thing. And she was named the 50th most, one of the 50 most influential women in Brazil last year by Forbes. And they live in West Des Moines. That's where the company's executive headquarters are now. And so, that is the short version of a long story, I guess, about where we are. We're reflecting here a little bit after 40 years, and we've got a few other new plans that I'm not going to share today. They're going to have to be waiting to get them as surprises yet that are coming that we've got in the works. We're not done yet. So, and I'm not done yet. So. But we've been a little creative, I think, over the time of what we've done, and I hope that we can continue that. But we'll see as time goes on here. We've got a whole new world to work with, compliments of a new president, and our whole idea is to adapt and find ways to remain profitable and continue this generational transition from. That's going to be a huge issue out here now as it goes to the next generation of farmers and what they know. I'm hoping I can provide a little bit of continuity from, as I said, if you're under 60, you haven't seen it all. I don't know that I've seen it all. My grandfather and stuff tells me a lot, and about the Great Depression too, and that's probably a whole nother deal. But you learn and you experience things, and hopefully you can share that, which is what we've tried to do, and share that perspective.
Well, think about it. When you started farming, you had just a few years head start on me when I started. But you think back, I mean, we had like 6 and 8 row planters, had to use markers. We had the old roller pumps and all that stuff. You didn't have satellites. You didn't have cell phones. None of that farming by the foot or anything. It's amazing how far we have come since the early 70s. And I can't imagine what's going to be available by the time your grandkids become farming age, what kind of technology they'll have to utilize. Should be fascinating times. So look forward to that. David, I know you need to run, and I'll let you go, but I thank you for the
I got one more comment that you just keyed off on me on here. I just got a great granddaughter just a couple weeks ago, and the first one of those. And I was thinking, here she's born in 2025. And I think back to how much change we've seen from 1925. And then I think forward to what she will see. Before, hopefully she'll live to be 100, I guess, and in 2125. And you start pondering on that perspective, and it's pretty mind blowing. What you know, and we know that 80% of what the change that has happened to the human advancement has been in the last 200 years. And if you want to look at all the different categories from physics to math to medicine or whatever, most of that's come in the last 100 years. And so we're accelerating. And so what she's going to experience, in her lifetime is right now is inconceivable.
Yep, it just keeps ramping up faster and faster. All righty. Well, again, thank you for the time. Fascinating story, and I'm sure there'll be more chapters that we can talk about in the future. That's David Kruse, the founder of CommStock Investments, joining us with a very special edition today. And we thank you for joining us. For producer Brianne Jenkins, I'm Marlin Bohling, and we'll see you next time right here on the CommStock Channel. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and/or options is substantial, and each investor and/or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.